Hero of the Day might be one of the most underrated songs of the Load era. It was a #1 rock hit. It was being played all over MTV, and now it's a song that Metallica never plays live anymore. On this episode, I talk about Metallica and their unfortunate history with not playing the Super Bowl, give you my fantasy set list for when they hopefully do play the Super Bowl, talk about why S&M 1 has more staying power than S&M 2, and of course, take a deep dive on all things Hero of the Day. Let's get into it. All right, episode 446. We're doing Hero of the Day. This one was requested by someone who wrote in. I believe it was a patron who said that this was their wife's favorite song from Load. So it's one of mine too, and I'm excited to talk about it. I'm going to have my guitar strapped on. We're going to do everything that we normally do in these episodes, talk through everything that's in the Load Deluxe box set, from the riff tapes to the demos in the dungeon, to teaching the band the songs on the floor in rehearsals, to actually getting the basic tracks all the way through the vocal overdubs and all that stuff. So it's going to be exciting. First of all, I want to say thank you to new patrons. Getting a ton of new patrons, and I think it's because there's a lot of cool shit going on at Patreon. I'm putting a bunch of videos up. I've put 2 videos up of my breakdowns of my covers of Metallica songs where I go through my entire Logic session. I did it for Fixer, and I did it for Hero of the Day, which as of the airing of this episode, my covers should be up on YouTube somewhere. A lot of fun stuff happening on YouTube also. Thanks for everyone for checking all that out and giving me the positive feedback. You may have noticed that the Studio Eve looks even better than it did last week. Every week, we're leveling up, as they say. But there's a lot of people hopping on the Patreon train, so I want to say thank you to them before we dive into all this stuff. So here's a list of names. Thank you to all of you. Once again, it's patreon.com/metalupyourpodcast if you're interested. Andrew Lindberg, James D., Justin Brown, Andrew Boutselis, Colton Brazier, Tim Rasmussen, House of Pain, 1984, Stephen McCullough, Muitsun, 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 Billy Paul, it says Paul, Nathaniel Huffman, Chris KW, and simply Colton. So I just want to thank all of you guys for hopping on the ride. This applause is for you. This is for you. It really does mean a lot to me, and it helps out a lot and all that stuff. There's a bunch of cool stuff. Just this week, I dropped the AMA with my wife. So that's over there. That's all we'll say about that. Okay, so there's an email address, metalupyourpodcastshow@gmail.com. I will read your thoughts on the show. Who knows? And I got an interesting email, and I want to talk about Metallica and the Super Bowl. The Super Bowl just happened. Isabel and I were in Orlando with Nova doing a cheer competition, and they booked her segment right in the middle of the Super Bowl. But we were able to go to a Buffalo Wild Wings, B-dubs, and we were able to watch the first half. And I got to say, pretty boring Super Bowl. And I'll do a rant later about Bad Bunny, or really more of a rant about people's outrage about Bad Bunny. I thought it was fine. What's the big deal? It was fine. It wasn't my favorite performance, but I feel 0% outrage about it. But we did get an email from Brett Mercer who says, Clint, good day. How do? In an alternate universe, if the boys had elected to do the halftime show, what song medley do you think they would have performed? Personally, with them on that stage, what 5-song medley would you want to hear? Appreciate the time and dedication you put into the podcast and the new YouTube videos. Keep it up. Peace and love, Brett Mercer. Thank you, Brett. I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, let's talk about the Super Bowl. This has come up for years. Fans even petitioned for the Super Bowl 50 when it was also in the Bay Area, but the NFL has always seemed to view Metallica as, quote-unquote, too heavy for halftime. In 2015, fans launched a Change.org petition to have Metallica perform at Super Bowl 50 on February 7th, 2016 at Levi Stadium in Santa Clara, California. The campaign argued that as Northern Californian legends, the band was the ideal fit for the Bay Area venue, gathering thousands of signatures to bring heavy metal to the halftime show. While not a formal public rejection, the NFL has historically overlooked Metallica for the Super Bowl halftime show, often favoring pop or more mainstream acts over heavy metal. Reports suggest the league viewed them as too heavy for the halftime spectacle, despite being a local Bay Area band. They were passed over for Super Bowl 50 in favor of Coldplay. Okay, in February of 2016, Metallica did play a sold-out show at AT&T Park in San Francisco as the official warm-up show for Super Bowl 50, too heavy for halftime. Hetfield said the band was unlikely to ever play the Super Bowl. I can't dance. I can't jump around. I'm not an acrobat. I'm not a variety show, you know? We are artists. We are a band. We love playing songs. We are not going to be flying through the air on a sparkly star with a unicorn, which would be nice, actually. He also spoke about the Super Bowl with the Associated Press. Our fan base is really wide, but when it comes to the Super Bowl halftime show, I feel like that ship has sailed. We're not a variety show. Yeah. Lars Ulrich weighed in just last year on 2025 on a Howard Stern interview. He expressed interest in playing the Super Bowl 60 because it was also in the Bay Area. Ulrich also voiced a strong interest in playing the Super Bowl halftime show, especially since the 2026 game will take place near Metallica's hometown of San Francisco, where the band headlined 2 shows just this past June. Fuck yeah, of course we would, he told Stern. First of all, we would do it. Second of all, to do it in San Francisco would be a dream come true and would be the right fit. Certainly as somebody who's represented San Francisco all over the world and shouted for decades about San Francisco and our love of the Bay Area, that part of it is the right fit. He added, however, ultimately, it is not our decision. So the real question isn't would they do it? It's how would you do it so that it actually works? So if Metallica ever did this, it would not be full songs. It's always this sort of medley format. And it would have to be sort of an abbreviated, high impact medley that just punches everyone in the face. Have to be super recognizable songs, which luckily they have a bunch of those. I don't think there's any problem with Metallica playing the Super Bowl. I think they would fucking crush it. So I thought about what would those songs be. So it's roughly 12 to 15 minutes, and I've put this together beautifully. You're going to hear it. Now, their 4 most popular songs, according to the internet, are Inner Sandman, Nothing Else Matters, Master of Puppets, and One. I don't think you can play Nothing Else Matters at the Super Bowl. I think it's too slow. And I don't think you can do One. I think One is too heady. It's too intense. Well, intense isn't the right word, but I don't think you can do One. The contenders would be, other than Sandman and Puppets, which I think have to be in. I think other contenders that would make sense in a Super Bowl format are For Whom the Bell Tolls, Seek and Destroy, Creeping Death maybe, Memory Remains maybe, Battery, and Sabbath True. So I've put this order together, and I'm just going to play it for you guys so that you can be surprised. So here's what we're going to do. I want you to imagine that you are at the Super Bowl or you're watching from a lovely place at home, and Metallica, your favorite band, our favorite band, is finally playing the Super Bowl, and this is how it goes down. Hey guys, apparently there were copyright infringements on the video I was about to show. If you want to hear the full thing, you can hear them wherever you hear podcasts. Look up Metal Up Your Podcast. Thanks. So there you have it. There's my idea for the Super Bowl. I think that would crush. I would like to hear what you think, though. Metal Up Your Podcast show at gmail.com. Let me know what you think the perfect 12 to 15 minute 4 to 5 song Metallica medley would be. All right, let's talk about S&M 1 versus S&M 2. Got an email from patron Cosmo Moore who says, "Hey Clint, Halo on Fire from S&M 2 just popped up on a random playlist, and it got me wondering, why don't I revisit that album more often? Maybe you can help me put my finger on it. I was excited when it came out. I was disappointed there wasn't a new original song like No Leaf Clover or Minus Human, and I was underwhelmed by Iron Foundry. Am I crazy, or does the mix of S&M 1 sound better than S&M 2? Or maybe it's just the novelty is worn off since it's already been done once before. I know it's never going to happen, but is there a 72 season song that you think would go well on S&M 3? Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of thoughts about this. First of all, 72 season song. He mentioned You Must Burn and Inamorata. Those are the clear ones to me. Maybe 72 seasons, title track. The thing about S&M 2 is I don't think that this is about S&M 2 being bad. I mean, S&M 2 is great, and the version of the Day That Never Comes is the definitive version for me. That was the biggest improvement in terms of like the thing I was most excited about that has stuck around for me. So S&M 2 is great. So this isn't about it being bad. I think it's about what was actually so special about S&M 1, why it was like lightning in a bottle, and why it's that kind of thing is almost impossible to recreate, because at the time no one had really done anything like that. For Metallica to do it felt like such a left of center move for them. And it was so exciting. And they were also at a point in their career where they were kind of still searching for that identity, or still trying to prove that MTV type of identity, and where they were almost daring their diehards to just come down narrower and narrower paths with them. And of course, for a little dumbass kid like me, I was just like, I love it. In orchestra, they're playing all my favorite songs. It's Load era heavy, which is also endearing to me. I mean, dude, spoiler alert. S&M1 is my favorite Metallica album, if we're not just counting the studio albums. Because that version of Puppets, I think, is my favorite version of Master of Puppets. And hearing Nothing Else Matters with Michael Kamen with the live orchestra, hearing One with the orchestra, Rome, Sabbath True, but man, being able to hear Hero of the Day, Devil's Dance, Memory Remains, Fuel, dude, going from Puppets into Fuel, and hearing Call of Cthulhu, those are things that are just so exciting about that. And then also, you have 2 new songs. I mean, at that time, bands get into this cycle where, and I think Metallica's in that now, unfortunately, where you're just less excited about the new stuff. And I'm not really talking about you guys who, like me, want to hear the new stuff, but just your average person. There's a time in the life of a band where they go, hey, we're going to play a new one. And everyone goes, oh shit, they're going to play a new song. And then at a certain point, when you want to play your new song, that's like a potty break. All bands go through that. It's very hard to maintain that fire. So for S&M1 to have No Leaf Clover on it, which actually became a hit. I mean, how rare that is? And then Minus Human also, I think everyone would agree is like a lesser new song of the time, but we loved it. I mean, it's heavy as hell. There were just so many exciting things about it the first time around. The second time around, you sort of know what to experience. And I think it's just like you mentioned, there's no new song. That middle section gets so slow with the Iron Foundry and that whole part is, I respect it. I think it's cool, but it's just sleepy. And into the Unforgiven 3, which is a highlight of S&M2, no doubt, but it just gets kind of sleepy. It kind of drags. It doesn't feel as dangerous. And also, I think we sort of know now in hindsight that James was going through some pretty big personal issues at the time. And I just think it's hard for that not to come through. I think you've also got S&M1 was in a smaller venue. I think they were a little afraid. They were a little trepidatious about the swing they were taking. And I think they believed in it, and they were obviously willing to do it and put it down. But the second one they did in an arena, just way more people, way more scrutiny, 20 years of life under their belt. And they also did too many of the same songs. It's just, it's more polished in terms of like, they just had so much time to settle into who they are. It sounds like a band that knows exactly who they are. S&M1 kind of still sounded like a band discovering something in real time. And that's not better or worse. It's just different. So the mix question, I think the S&M1 mix does feel more dramatic. It was built to showcase the contrast. Metallica, heaviest band in the world with an orchestra. The orchestra sort of interrupts the band in a way that feels exciting. I think there's more dynamics in the recording. And I've done this. I've tried to put my finger on it too, where I'm like, what's going on? And if you go listen to Call of Cthulhu, 99, Call of Cthulhu 2019, it feels a little more blended in S&M2. It feels a little smoother, a little less confrontational, a little less texture, a little less gritty. You also just cannot replace the confidence, the peak of the band confidence in that late 90s period. It's like, I just think it's my favorite era of the band because to me, it's a sort of culmination of the Load and Reload era. And I would kind of put I Disappear into this, but I Disappear would represent maybe the last time that they were at that full power with Jason in that era. The era changed. I think in the era after 2000, they were at the height of their power at Death Magnetic, which someone wrote to me on YouTube today, and they said that Metallica just became bullshit after the 90s. And I sort of wrote a friendly comment that was like, well, most people agree that Death Magnetic's pretty good. He's like, Death Magnetic's boring. The riffs are boring. James can't sing anymore. It's like, oh, shit. That's quite the hot take. But it's cool to hear Halo on Fire with the orchestra. It's cool to hear Moth in the Flame. It's cool to hear The Day That Never Comes. I think that they would have had more legs if they would have chosen a lot more different songs. I could do without Confusion. I could do without the slow Scythian, sweet Iron Foundry thing. And maybe take off, take off Nothing Else Matters. I don't know. And throw Hero of the Day back in there. Anyway, I don't think that S&M2 is a failure. I just think S&M1 was a moment that just can't be repeated, and that's actually okay. Master! Well, now we're going to hear from our friends at Nuprin, and then we are going to dive into all things Hero of the Day.
I can't talk about it anymore. It's giving me a headache.
Here, take 2 of these.
Ah, Nuprin. Little, yellow, different.
All right, let's talk about Hero of the Day. As usual, I've got my guitar in my hands. I'm playing my trusty Explorer with the James Hetfield headset pickups. So I'll be talking about the riffs, some of the cool things that are going on. As usual, I learned this song when I was a kid. This is one of the ones that, when I had my little band when I was 14 or 15, none of us were great singers. None of us were destined to be singers in bands, but this was always the one that I requested to sing because I thought it was just such a beautiful song. I always loved it. I understand now what was controversial about it or what was tough about it to people already. I mean, people are already bummed about the Black Album. And then when you get to this phase of their career, these songs were hard to swallow for some people. And especially this song being so, it's kind of a happy sounding song. I think that they've done a great job of there's an ominous dark vibe to it, even though it's kind of in a major key, which is unusual for them. This actually is one of their most unusual songs when you think about it. It doesn't read as much of a departure as something like Mama Said. I mean, Mama Said is a James Hetfield solo song. It's a country song about his feelings about his mother dying. And this is a little different. It's a little more esoteric. It's a little hard to understand maybe what he's talking about. It feels a little less personal especially for the era. But it is such a kind of beautiful song of longing. And of course, he has he sings about the mama, they tried to break me. But it feels different. I feel like this is a little less personal, a little more about, some people think it's about a soldier. Some people think it's about just looking for heroes in culture. I love the music video, by the way. I'm kind of doing a little tangent here on Hero of the Day, but the music video of the kid flipping through the TV, and it's them in the TV in all these different scenes. But okay, so before we dive into all the riffs and the tones and why the song does what it does, I want to sort of set the table, contextualize the song a little bit. Of course, it was a single off of Load. It was released on my birthday, September 9th, 1996. That was the year that I turned 13. Yeah, that was my 13th birthday. We talked about the singles that were already released. We already covered them, King Nothing and Until It Sleeps and Mama Said. And we talked about how maybe Wasting My Hate should have been the other single. Still just love playing that riff. Normally when I learn new songs, those riffs just immediately disappear out of my brain because there's no more storage up there. But I do remember that one just because it's so fun to play. But I wanted to talk about how it did on the chart. So it was number 1 on Billboard Mainstream Rock Chart, which is no joke. And it was number 60 on the Billboard Hot 100, which means the Billboard Hot 100 is you're competing with every genre of music, not just rock. So number 60 on the Hot 100, number 1 on Billboard Mainstream Rock for a mid-tempo, major key kind of new Metallica song when they're in sort of a strange searching for an identity part of their career. That's pretty cool to me. Internationally, it performed pretty good. Number 2 in Australia. It was top 10 in Finland and Norway. Number 17 in UK. Commercially, I mean, this was a successful radio single. As of today, Hero of the Day sits at roughly 65 million streams on Spotify, which compared to other of Metallica's big songs, the ones, Enter Sandman, Nothing Else Matters, Master of Puppets. I mean, Master of Puppets got the really big push from Stranger Things, but 65 million streams is pretty good for a song they never play live anymore. The official video, of course, directed by Anton Corbijn, more than 15 million views on YouTube. So this song has legs. I mean, it's kind of continued to live on in the streaming era. Live performance. It has been played 74 times live. The first time, September 23rd, 1996 in Barcelona, Spain. Last performed at the Bridge School benefit, October 22nd, 2016. And I have a theory, and I think this theory is confirmed, that when they play this song and they play it poorly, they never want to play it again. That's what happened with Unforgiven 2. When they played it on that Billboard Music Awards, and Kirk comes in with the biggest clam in history. And you guys know how I feel about Kirky Poo. He's one of the best ever. He's one of my favorite guitar players ever, but he lays an egg on TV when he comes in on Unforgiven 2. Go look it up. And they played that song maybe 4 times after that. And that was in 1997. And I think the only other times they played it, one of the All Within My Hands gigs, I think. And they did it on the By Request tour. But if you go watch this last time they played it, it's kind of rough. And I hate to say it because I love my boys. But, I also believe, I've been in many bands live where we played the song and we didn't play it good for whatever reason. Something bad happened. And I'm a big believer in you got to get back on the horse. Now, the thing with Metallica is they have like a million other great songs. So they're like, that one can go. It's also pretty high. It's a pretty high song even for James to sing, which James has like pretty amazing range actually. And I felt like he was at a peak of exploring, especially the top of his range. Well, honestly, the low stuff too in Load and Reload, the dynamics of his range. Like if you look at a song like Low Man's lyric, that beginning, my eyes see reality. That's low. My fingers seek my veins. There's a dog at your backstab. He was coming from the rain. That's low. The verse to Unforgiven 2 is low. The high stuff in Hero of the Day, it's high for him. You can even hear it when we go through all the demos and then putting the song together. And then when you listen to him trying to hit those notes, especially at the very end of Hero of the Day, he's struggling. And honestly, I hate to say it, but my boy Kirk was struggling too on this performance. So that was the last time they played it. You know, it had a strong life in the late 90s, but then it's just pretty much disappeared. So, you know, what does that tell us about the song? Does that mean that they've kind of drifted away from the song? Is it as simple as the catalog's too big and some songs got to go? I mean, we talked about S&M, and that's one of the ones that they dropped from S&M too. People were rightly confused by it. It's in the major key. And we're going to be talking about all the riffs and stuff. But for those of you who may not know music as well, so it's in a major key. And most of their songs are in minor, mostly E minor. And, major keys tend to be happier. That's an A major. That's the key of the song. The minor key sounds like this. And it's really just this note. The C sharp makes it major, and the C makes it minor. Sad. Major, happy. People are used to Metallica sounding dark and scary and morose and stuff. So, there were metal purists who thought it was too polished, too mid-tempo, too far removed from the thrash era. And it was just continuing this sort of disillusionment that they had started with the Black Album. But, I've talked about this a lot before, but just at the age that I was, none of that ever mattered to me. It just never occurred to me. To me, song is king. The song is king. And so I was too young to be judgmental. If this song had hit me at 17 and I had come up with Metallica, I might have felt differently. I mean, and that's really what happened to me when Saint Anger happened. I do think this is a bit of a different case than that. I think there's a pretty big difference between Saint Anger and Load in terms of having to be challenged by your favorite band doing something different. Saint Anger is a very difficult record just sonically to listen to, and I'm not sure that their best songs are on that. Whereas I think even a lot of purists at the time would now agree that some of Metallica's best songs are on Load. I mean, think about Bleeding Me, Until It Sleeps. Hero of the Day, I think, is one of those. King Nothing. The Outlaw Torn. It's also, I think, one of the earliest ones that they started recording for Load. So we're going to get into, why they called it Moldy, which is the working title, because it reminded them of a Bob Mould riff, which is a Husker Du, which is probably a punk rock influence of theirs. But it's a fascinating middle space they were in. I mean, because if it's one of the first songs that they recorded for Load, it's like sort of almost like a tone setter for the album. And it was a #1 hit. And it's a song that they don't play anymore, even though it still streams well. And the video's got a ton of views. So it's just a sort of fascinating middle place to be. It's not a deep cut and it's not really a legacy classic either. So, but I do think it was a defining statement of the Load era. So we're going to talk about it now. Let's break into and let's start listening to what's going on here with the Deluxe box set. The first thing that we have is working title Moldy. And we just learned that was from Bob Mould, which is something I didn't know, until recently. Because the demos have been circulating for a while on one of those fan cans. We're going to go chronologically. Like I said before, we normally do the riff, the demo, the studio takes, alternate mixes, final version, the live era. They put some live treats in the Deluxe box set. We're going to play clips and all that stuff, demonstrate on the guitar. So this is from CD number 2, the riffs, demos, and rough mixes.
Hey, it's a couple of different versions of the Bob Mould riff. Moldy riff. Moldy.
So the first thing I noticed is that he's doing that full arpeggio of the riff. Chorus, same riff, but it's heavier. So we got the main riff, and it's pretty much intact there. It's interesting what he does on the demo is because the actual riff, they let it breathe. They let the phrase breathe. And then he pauses. Then he goes. But in this first demo, he's doing the full arpeggiation. He's going. And then he's letting those breathe. And I've got to say, I mean, I even felt this way as a kid. And then all these years later, playing music, I've never seen a riff like this. I've never seen a riff that walks up in this way. It doesn't make sense in a way. It's such an interesting thing, and we're going to talk about something that he gets into at the end that I've never honed in on before until I started doing this. So that was the first genesis of the riff. You can hear them sort of talking about it. They call it the moldy riff. Next up is the demo, this is the point where, and that's interesting because there's probably little micro stages in between the riff tape and the demo that I would actually like to hear too, because I'm a greedy little biatch when it comes to the load stuff. Oh, where is it? There it is. So this is the demo, CD2, recorded December 10th, 1994, early load cycle demo period. And they did originally put this on the B-side of the actual single. So let's check this out. This is James and Lars in the Dungeon. Ooh, a little clam there. James on bass. Hear him noodling in A. It almost sounds like the Grateful Dead. And then we're into verse 2. So let's talk about a little bit the chunky parts of that riff. So I'm doing the thing, I did not match this tone perfectly, but I'm doing the thing where I have the neck pickup kind of down low, so it almost turns clean. And then I switch right up to the bridge pickup where it's heavy. I love in the chorus when he starts going. And also they do this together where instead of articulating every note, they start going. which I think is so cool. I mean, it's just a little thing that grabs your ear, but one of them, I'm not sure if it's James or Kirk. They don't start doing this, I don't think, until they actually get into the studio. But one of them starts doing these octaves. Anyway, so back to the demo. Guitars sound pretty cool. All right, we got the bridge. And we've got the melody for the bridge. I love this major noodling. All right, back to the bridge. And then we're going to hear a full-on James solo. Check this out. Oh, soloing over the bridge. All right, we got to talk about that James solo. So first of all, I got to say, even when James is noodling and hitting clams, there's something about, I don't know, guitar players have this. Some of them have this. Paul Moak is like this, actually. I think Mike Campbell was like this. In a sense, he almost doesn't hit a bad note because the phrasing and the touch is so good that even when it's clammy, it's okay. And Paul McCartney also has that. He has a great touch on the guitar. Whereas George Harrison was a better guitar player, a much better composer of solos, but didn't have as good of a touch for some reason. And so when something goes wrong with George, it's like really shrill and noticeable. We're going to hear as they get into the Take 16, we're going to listen to, and also there's a scratch vocal rough mix. We're going to hear Kirk's 2 attempts at solos before he landed on his very awesome melodic solo that I like a lot. But his clams just for some reason poke me more than James is. Like, I like hearing, and another thing that's funny about what James did on that solo, you know, when he's noodling around, he's doing that Grateful Dead shit. You know, it's funny when he gets to the actual solo, he tries to do this pentatonic blues thing, which does not work over. It's pretty funny. And then also he solos over the... And another thing that they do in this demo that does not happen again, I think they got rid of this by the time they got to the Take 16, which we're about to listen to, is he modulates down to E in the solo. So he starts it and does... right there. Which is pretty cool. In fact, let's go ahead and talk about the bridge riff, because the sooner I can get this fucking guitar out of my hands, the better. So I can't figure out if he's doing this thing when they're going da-da-dong, da-da-dong-dong. If he's... where he's keeping his pinky on the C sharp. Or if he's going, when he's chugging, he's doing all the chords. So I did both, okay? For Kirk's, I went the full chords. For James, I did just the top note. And another thing that's interesting, and a really subtle detail, but this is why we're here in this episode, digging into Hero of the Day, is when they first start the bridge, neither of them do any kind of accents. They both just go... But after that first round of that, when James starts singing the hook, he starts doing these string scratches in between, and Kirk stays straight. So it's a really small thing, but so James starts going... This is what that sounds like together. This is me with the band. And I think actually, I don't even know if I have Jason in there. But here are the bridge guitars. You're going to hear James's guitar pan left, Kirk's guitar pan right. And listen for those scratching accents that James is doing over on the left. So, I like just the way those guitars play together. Okay, so we're going to go now to the Take 16 from the day that they started playing it at the plant. This is from CD4 Shadowcast. It was recorded on November 8th, 1995. Heavily chorused. They ended up going more of a light flanger, which they were a big fan of these chorusy flanger things during this era. They're both playing that pretty part, which I don't think happens on the actual recording. But I gotta say, the song already has the vibe. I mean, it already sounds great. At least it sounds like the song that we know and love. Chorus 2. And they're slightly palm muting that too when they get to the rock stuff. And then they're opening up those strums when they get to that E major. Palm muting is when you rest your palm kind of near the bridge. So instead of it playing open, you're choking the string a little bit. You're not letting it ring out. All right. Contrast that with this. Now again with the palm mute. It just adds chug. It's a hallmark of heavy music. Big part of it. So they're doing that on Here They. All right, back to take 16. You hear those octaves for the first time. It's heavy. Kirk solo. See, Kirk's trying the pentatonic thing too. And he's landing on the radio when he goes, he did that phrase a couple of times, which is a very major sounding phrase, but he's trying these like, and then when he starts climbing, he's starting to sort of find it, but at some point, someone got in his ear and was like, dude, you can't do a bluesy, kind of normal, more hard rock pentatonic Kiss thing over that. You got to figure out something pretty. Because, you know, when in the verse when he goes, and then we'll get to the solo eventually. All right, back to take 16. All right, check out what James is doing. All right, I'd never heard that riff before at the end. I just never paid attention to it. But so over the... You hear a James guitar going... which is so weird and cool. Check this out. Here's me playing with the band. Get that Kirk lead in there too. Kirk's doing that. But how about that James part? And then he changes it. That blew my freaking mind, dude. Okay, so that's take 16. Moving on to, this is called the Moldy Hero of the Day Scratch Vocal Rough Mix. This was recorded February 7th, 1995. It's on CD5 Shadowcast of the Deluxe box set. I think someone announces.
This is Moldy,
yeah.
February 7.
Check out this weird delay on the guitar. You guys hear how weird that sounds? All right, so now we got the lyric. Not a lot of dummy lyrics in this one, thankfully.
The window buzzed till I'm the way back home.
And this is the first time we hear the acoustic. You guys hear that in the right channel? I want to focus on that acoustic for a second. because this is the load stuff that I love, is the texture. You've got the acoustic stuff on like Fade to Black and Unforgiven and Battery and Justice for All. But the texture of these acoustics is what I really love, because they're so thoughtful and they're doing such different things. And they're not, the Fade to Blacks and the Unforgivens, they're such big focal points, whereas these parts are just pure texture. And so I'll play for you what it's doing, and I can't go get a guitar, but I'll play it kind of in this more, less distorted tone. But it's going. Such a pretty part. And then when the chorus happens, it does the same beginning, but it has a different ending. It goes. So let's listen to that real quick. So I have just the acoustic by itself, and then we'll hear it with the band. So this is first verse acoustic. This is me playing with the band. Using my Gibson Hummingbird, by the way. All right, here's the chorus. All right, now here is that same thing, but with the band. Here's the chorus. There's a flanger on that bass. All right, so you guys get the idea on that one. Then in verse 2, there's a really cool thing where they don't just repeat that, they evolve it, which is something that I love about the era too. It's great songwriting, it's great recording. I'd love to talk to one of them or talk to Bob Rock about, like, was he feeding them this stuff of like, you guys should just keep exploring textures and don't play that same exact thing. Maybe try to figure out something a little different, because they could have easily just gotten an acoustic guitar and gone. I also love it when James does that. If you go look at live versions of Hero of the Day, he's doing the thing that we've been finding a lot in the Load stuff, where he's not afraid to kind of evolve some of these riffs. He'll do that with this Hero of the Day, where he'll go, which I love so much. But so anyway, so instead of the acoustic just parroting that, and then on verse 2, they don't even just do that idea. Kirk does this cool thing where he goes, which will come up again later in the song in a place that I never expected it. But let's hear it. This is me with the band, kind of focusing on that acoustic second verse by itself. Such a cool part. All right, and here it is with the band. This is such a pretty part. Especially, look, we're going to start that again. But when Kirk brings in that little major lead right here, all these textures, dude. All right, so yeah, back to the scratch vocal mix.
For what they should fall
some melody changes.
Slowly turns, and someone there is sighing. Keepers of the flames.
See, and now he has that thing in the choruses.
Can't you hear your names? Can't you hear your babies crying?
And thank God they lost the noodles. The Jerry Garcias. Is that acoustic?
Excuse me while I tender how I feel.
No leads yet from Kirk in this verse.
These things return to me that still seem real. Now deservingly easy chair.
They've still got the acoustic in, by the way.
But the rocking stopped by wheels of despair. Yeah, don't want your aid, but the fist I made for years can't hold or feel. Not on me, so please excuse me while I tender how I feel. But now the dreams that wait, now the dreams that ever last the night. So build the wall behind, build the wall and hide until it's light. So can you hear your babies crying now?
Another Kirk solo, a different one.
Still a window burns, time so slowly turns. Light the way back home. Keepers of the flames, do you feel your name? No matter where they've gone. But now the dreams and waking dreams that ever last the night. So build a wall behind, build a wall and hide until it's light. So can you hear your babies crying now?
Still heavy as hell. You hear that James part?
Mama, they try and break me. Mama, they try and break me. Mama, they try. Mama, they try. Mama, they try and break me. Mama, they try and break me. Mama, they try.
Kirk's doing some leads up there.
Mama, they try. Mama, they try.
So we hear now that it's pretty close. They really haven't figured that solo out yet. And the thing is, all we have next is an instrumental mix. I do love that thing at the end. With the heavy channel. Sit up here and play that all day. So the instrumental mix they have, and you hear Bob Rock or Randy Staub, someone at the top of it, who's basically like, here's an instrumental mix. It's from March 28th, 1996. But they say that there's no overdubs and nothing interesting on it. So you guys can listen to that for yourself. But like I said before, that him and James and Kirk are both kind of just doing this too much of a pentatonic bluesy thing. And what they really need is what Kirk landed on. And then he kind of goes up into this high octave thing. So here's something interesting that I unearthed about this solo section is, so you have Hetfield, who is doing the sort of classic, I'm going to play the riff heavy under the solo. But he's also got another kind of melodic thing going on, which should not work because it seems too busy. And he's doing something similar to what the acoustic guitar is doing in verse 2, where he's going. He's doing that under the solo. Now, maybe you guys have heard this your whole lives, but I just heard this for the first time. So I'm going to play you guys that right now. And I'm kind of calling it a James solo part. Check this out. This is going on during the guitar solo. All right, so this is what it sounds like with the band. So it's almost like two solos going on. So that's most of what we got. There's not really a lot more in terms of like the evolution of the recording of the song. By the time that they got to that point, they'd pretty much gotten it. And it sounds like all they really worked out after that was just really comping the right vocal, getting the right vocal mix. It sounds like they added some ideas. The last thing that we get to hear before the final mix is they had some kind of call and response echoes in chorus 3 that didn't make the final mix. The other stuff that's on the box set for Hero of the Day is bummer is not the right word, but these remixes, dude, are so not for me, which doesn't mean they're not for someone. But we have the Out of B-Sides mix. I believe this was on the single that came out again on my birthday. It says this was remixed by Kevin. This is Kevin with a C. Remixed by Kevin Keys and SP Download with A. Valchik, K. Marshall, and Philith. Philith. And I guess let's just listen to it together. I don't think I'm going to be able to get through the whole thing, but let's try. Let's see what happens. Ay, ay. Ay, 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 ay. I mean, I don't get it. Now, this is 6 minutes and 34 seconds long. Feel free to crank it at your own leisure. Now, amazingly, there's even another one of these. They must have really not had enough to put out for Hero of the Day, but which is disappointing because it was a single. It was a number 1. This is the Hero of the Day unreleased mix by the same people. Kevin with a C. I mean, if your name is Kevin with a C, this is the kind of stuff you're up to. Now, I will say this song sounds like it should be in the movie Hackers, and that kind of does make me like it. All right, some vocal. This one, folks, 7 minutes, 38 seconds. I mean, I'll tell you what, if you're into that, write in metalbeerpodcastshow@gmail.com and let me know what I'm missing about that. You know, if someone did write in, I think it was Jamila, this was about the Moby remix of Oh God, what song was that? Maybe it was King Nothing or Until It Sleeps. I can't remember. It was the Herman Melville remix, and she was like, I think she was more part of that kind of scene in the '90s. So, these people that they got to remix these songs were famous, at that time. Maybe they still are for remixes, but it must be like what the Trues felt like when they heard the Black Album or when they heard Mama Said. I'm just like, who are these people and what have they done with my band? There's 2 live versions that they included. One is live at the Miami Arena, Miami, Florida, April 19th, 1997. The more interesting one is this coffee break concert that we actually have video of. Hey guys, apparently there were copyright infringements on the video I was about to show. If you want to hear the full thing, you can hear them wherever you hear podcasts. Look up Metal Up Your Podcast. Thanks. Well, that's it. That's Hero of the Day. I appreciate you guys hanging out with me. Another episode in the can. I want to point everyone to Patreon. If you want to go be a member over there, support the show, be a part of what's cool about the show. It keeps me excited to do it. It does help me make sense of all the time that it takes. And I'm putting new stuff on there every kind of other day now. I just put out a video of an AMA with me and Isabel, with my wife. The patrons let us rant and ask us a bunch of questions about life and parenthood and music and movies and what our relationship's like. And we did all of that. And I'm also doing full session breakdowns of my covers of, I did Fixer, I did Hero of the Day. And also my cover of Hero of the Day is on YouTube, hopefully. And it really helps if you like and subscribe and if you comment over there. We're trying to grow this little thing called Metal Up Your Podcast. I figure on year 8, maybe we should grow this thing. But I am grateful for all of you who listen. And for those of you who might be watching out there, I do appreciate it. Take care of yourselves. Take care of your families. Peace.